Hi, Christopher. How are you?
I am doing great, Kevin. What a pleasure to be here with you. Been cruising
Thank.
through your website and your YouTube channel. It's really good. I can't believe I get to be on your show. It's very cool. Thank you.
I can't believe I get to have you on my show. So the pleasure is all mine. I really appreciate that. But
Uh,
thank you for your kind words. I think we're both people who really have quite a very sincere love for music. And, at least 23/7, if not 24/7. You got to have time for hobbies and other things. But I think we both, you know, really like music an awful lot to spend the amount of time we do with it. So
I do indeed. Happy to be here.
thank you. I want to take a second to introduce our future audience to you. This is Christopher Wyze of Christopher Wyze and the Tellers. It's just an amazing story of blues music gone good. It's just here in 2024, released a debut studio album, Stuck in the Mud, and followed up just a few months later with a live album, Live in Clarksdale. Both albums shot up the blues chart. People are talking about these albums. People are listening to it, finding the band on YouTube, finding them all over the internet. Lots of interviews, lots of talk shows, and just I'm excited to see what's going to happen next. And I hope to hear about some of that today.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. Let's do it, man.
All right. So, you started you grew up in Indiana, right? I'm in Chicago, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I'm in Chicago.
Oh, well, you sound like Chicago.
Do I have the Chicago sound to me?
You do, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
you do.
Yeah, I don't know because I've been here my whole life, so I don't know what that's supposed to sound. I mean, I kind of know what it's supposed to sound like, but I don't think I have it. But I guess I just, product of Chi-Town.
There you go. Yeah. Grew up in southern Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, right on the river, almost in Kentucky. So that's where I came from.
I've driven that drive from Illinois, from Chicago to Evansville, to the tip of the state. I
You
was a
got it.
secret shopper for a music company at one point in my life, and I had to go down there and shop at music stores in Evansville to see how they compared to our stores and to see how our stores were doing. So I've been down there.
How about that? That's
Yeah,
fantastic. Cool.
yeah, yeah. Um, so being that you had grown up there, are you still in Indiana? Are you still
Yeah, I'm just north of Indianapolis. So I
okay?
call Indianapolis home. I've been here for a long time. Went to school here at Butler University
Oh,
and
great,
stayed here. Yeah, been here
great.
a long time.
So growing up in Indiana, and I mean, you can grow up anywhere and hear a certain type of genre of music, but what was, when you were growing up and going to high school and everything, what were you listening to? Was it always about
Well,
blues or was it a wide variety?
wide variety. My mom was into musicals. I'm a little kid, and there I'm, running around the house, and she's got the Music Man on, and Man of La Mancha and Camelot and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a little kid, and what kind of struck me about that was the cool stories that came through the lyrics. These they had a lot going on, so I think somehow that's come back to me. But when I was in high school, my goodness, that's the '70s, man. I mean, we had the Doobie Brothers, we had Foghat. I mean, it was Harry Chapin. I can think, and we would go all see all these groups. I really hadn't gotten into the blues a lot, and I'm not even sure I knew that rock and roll sort of came out of the blues. But man, we had some great artists of the '70s that just it was cool. I just Supertramp. I see it on your wall back there. Jackson Brown. Look at this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of music hit me, and then I got into blues a little bit later. My brother came home from college with B.B. King and Bobby Blue Bland live together for the first time. It was a 2-album set, of course, on vinyl. And man, I'll tell you what, that thing lit me up. I just thought that is so cool. And I hearkened back to kind of the Mills Brothers and Joe Williams, some Sam Cooke. My mom would play that stuff, so it wasn't too far off from what I knew, but I'd never really heard it sort of condensed in that manner by BB and Bobby Bland. So from that point, I started digging the blues too.
It's a very specific genre of music with so many cool detours, and like you said, deriving from rock music and from different things. Some of the biggest bands today, their roots were all in the blues, like the Stones and some of those bands. They just that was their thing, and they would. But in honor of our interview today, I do have my BB King shirt here. I wear my
Oh, look
BB
at
King
you,
shirt.
man.
80
That's
years
fantastic.
here. 80 years celebration of his birthday when he was with us here, when living.
Oh,
But his 80th birthday they were celebrating, and yeah, so many in Chicago. So
oh,
many blues
blues.
artists, Chess Records. I wish I was like a Kindred Soul back when chess
Paul
record was open.
Butterfield, Mike Bloomfield,
Yes, right.
Junior Wells. I mean, I mean, you can't. Howlin' Wolf, my all-time favorite. I mean,
Hmm.
that's Chicago, baby. It's Bluesville, man.
Right, right. When you started hearing some of the blues music, when your brother brought home the BB King album and the double album, and did you do any gravitation towards Chicago since you were kind of in? I know you were down in Clarksville at that time. You were more northern Indianapolis by that point, right? By high
Yeah,
school,
yeah.
college,
I
you went to
left
Butler.
high school, went to school, college here in Indianapolis, and stayed here ever since. But Mississippi was sort of a detour just for music. I haven't lived there, but yeah. So yeah, I would. Chicago was the big town. If you wanted to do something really cool, you could go
Yeah,
to Chicago. Indianapolis is okay, but man, Chicago is really cool. And yes, I have been to some of the blues clubs, Kingston Mines and others of those. And I didn't do it as a kid. You know, I got kind of busy being working stiff and all that. And I kind of got away from music. And it's such a joy to be at a place where now this is what I do and care about and think about. And the career stuff's behind me. I'm not gonna, that's all done, man. So I can really just love every minute of this, and I do. It's great.
I'm really excited for you, genuinely excited for you, Chris, because I mean it's the American dream to get the job out of the way and then start your real career in music. I listen to your songs and working for the man and now I don't and just your story is such a great one that at this point in your life that you're doing what you want to do and enjoying every minute of it.
Well, and you were saying, I think before we got on the air here, but you were saying, hey, someday maybe I still can do this, and you can. And you look at those people on the wall behind you, and the people that you interview on your show, which is awesome, dude. But I got to meet one of those people in the person of Ralph Carter, who used to play and write and record and was the tour music director for, look at that guy, Eddie Money. And so I meet him in Clarksdale, Mississippi in 2012. I was singing in a cover band then. We sang a lot of blues, and I really got into the blues then. And I picked up a harmonica and started playing and got some instructional CDs and mostly played in the car. I really didn't play it much at home. My wife really not fond of the harmonica too much. So I played in the car. And then I found out about this music camp in Clarksdale, Mississippi, run by John Gindick. I had his instructional CDs. And by golly, after I'd been in this cover band for a few years, I thought, I need to take my harp playing up a little notch. I got some good musicians around me. I got to start carrying the load here, baby. And I, lo and behold, meet Ralph Carter there. And Ralph, he wrote Shakin' with Eddie Money. I mean, so Ralph teaches guitar, bass, songwriting, and then also as an instructor in harmonica camps in Clarksdale, Mississippi. He's been doing it for about 15 years.
Wow.
And, he's come through his rock and roll kind of royalty phase. And he's in Ventura, California now, has his own studio there and does like television kind of scoring and things of that sort. And lo and behold, I run into Ralph there in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I don't know what it was. We hit it off. We're similar age. We love similar music. And I just hit it off. And he kind of took me aside at the first camp and said, hey, man, you can do this. And I'm like, wow, I'm kind of like you and all these stars you get to talk to. I'm like, whoa, I'm talking to this guy and he says I can do this. And I said, oh, man, I don't know. I wish I'd have done it when I was younger. And he looked at me and kind of winked and he said, no, you really don't wish you would have done this when you were younger. You might not have come out the other side. I finally had to quit the rock and roll thing. But, and he had all sorts of stories about that. But that was really fun. But so he said, and some of the people who are going to these camps, they're trying to learn for the first time. Well, I'd been playing for a while and I'd been on stage. I've been in a band, all covers. But I knew music. I sang as a kid. I sang in choirs. We had a very good music department in my high school, and we won gold medals and things like that. We sang the Messiah with an orchestra. I sang first tenor, second tenor, baritone, and bass in my years in high school. So kind of worked my way through the treble clef down into the bass clef.
Yeah.
And so I had a little background in music, but forgot about it until somebody drafted me and said, hey, we need a singer in our band and we need a front man. And that got me started. And this guy was totally into the blues. I go to this camp and I meet Ralph, and he says, "Hey, I think you can do this." That meant the world to me, of having someone who's kind of been to the mountain.
Oh my
And
goodness.
say, I'm singing I'm singing Doors covers and the Rolling Stones and stuff like that. And he's like, "Hey, kid, you can do this." I wasn't a kid, but so that was really cool. And so he says, "You know what? We need to do an album someday." I'm like, "What? I'd love to be on your album." He goes, "No, no, it's going to be your album." I said, I have no idea what you're
Yeah.
talking about. He goes, "You need to start writing music." And I had never written a song before. And so this was, 8 or 10 years, 2012, back in that time frame. And it kind of gnawed on me. In my career, I'm a writer. I've been a journalist. I wrote for a newspaper, a magazine, and then I spent most of my career as an advertising guy. I own an advertising agency. I wrote stuff. I've written 5 books that are in print. And so for me, writing is really kind of what I think of myself when I think of what I am as a writer. And when Ralph said write songs, I kind of put it away. And then one day I'm reading, of all things, the Wall Street Journal. And there's an article in there. I don't sound like a blues man, right? But I got it. I think I got it at some point. I read this article about a new recording studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. There's a guy by the name of Michael Wright. He bought an old home there, kind of a mansion, cool place, remodeled it, made it into a studio, and it's a live-in thing. The band goes there, you stay for a week, they make you food and cater to you and whatnot. And as a joke, I took a picture of my cell phone and I texted it to Ralph and said, "Hey, dude, here's where we're going to make our record." And I was just kidding, and he came back and said, "All right, when do we record?" And
wow.
That's where this whole adventure started. Some months later, we booked some recording time, and he and I agreed to meet in Clarksdale, Mississippi, like 5 months later. And I said, "I'll have a pile of lyrics for you, Ralph." He's a music guy. And I thought, look, I know how to write, and I'm going to now devote myself to songs. And I'm used to writing maybe a 50,000 word book or a 40,000 word book. I mean, this is like a 250 word song. It's like
different.
I get the word thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it was different.
And so for me, it's really, you got to have a story. It's not about the words. I mean, I'd spent 35 years writing words. I know how to make words go together.
Right.
That's not hard, but I had to be on the lookout for blues stories, like Life Behind Bars, about a guy who literally passes out in the alley behind bars, right? And he's a prisoner behind the 12 bars of the blues.
That's awesome. Bars. That's the great concept. Yeah.
Yeah. Just stuff like that. So I write these songs and I meet Ralph and we sit on a picnic table for 3 days. And I'm like, "Ralph, what do I do?" He said, "You just show up." I pick him up at the airport in Memphis. We drive to Clarksdale. And he says, "Okay, day one." He goes, "Pull out your lyrics." He goes, "What do you want to do first?" I picked out this song called 3 Hours from Memphis, which I had written.
I love the song. I love it. Love it.
Oh, that's Ralph Carter music, just in spades. But I was driving to Memphis to meet Ralph, and I had not written that song. I looked down at my GPS there. I got my Ford Explorer, and I'm like, "Where am I?" It's like 3 hours from Memphis.
And a million miles.
Like, holy cow. Yeah. A million. And I'm like, that's a song. So literally, Kevin, I take out a little notepad and I start scribbling the lyrics to that song. And I was too scared to pull off the road. I'm like, I got this whole song in my head about this guy. He's driving to Memphis. He's going to be a star. He's going to meet a music dude and all this. And by the time I was done writing the song, I think I was about an hour from Memphis. So that's the first song we started with. And he said, "Read me the words. Tell me the story." And then Ralph kind of goes into this Yoda thing where he closes his eyes and he gets this kind of faraway look and he'll just start playing something. He goes, "How's that feel? How's that sound?" And I've sung for a long time. I was like, "Let me see if I can do it." So we marched through those songs. And in 3 days, 2.5 days, we had put maybe 15 of them to music and did little iPhone demos. Eric Deaton, who became our guitar player in Muscle Shoals, who plays with the Black Keys and Hank Williams Jr., he's a friend of Ralph's. He came by the last day and said, "Hey," and Ralph said, "I want him on this record." And we walked through the songs with him. So that was it. But that song, 3 Hours from Memphis, I had no idea that was, autobiographical. It never occurred to me until a year after that album was done. It's like I was driving to Memphis. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Ralph was there. But the funny thing is, I had no clue that I would sign a record deal with a record label in Memphis.
Yeah.
So 2 years later, it was never on my mind. I'd never met anybody. I didn't know anyone in Memphis from a music viewpoint. And somehow that song poured out of me as I was rolling down the road. And then I kind of lived into it. I became that person in that song, which is just creepy, man. It's not creepy, but mystical in a mystical way. So, wow, I'm just going on and on. So that's a
This is
little bit
great.
of how I got there.
That's wonderful because it brings that song to life for me as I listened to that song when I was listening to the album. It's like, it's just it's magical. I could almost picture it now with and then you tell the story about the bars, life behind bars. You would assume behind bars, but
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
behind the 12-bar blue, behind the bars, the physical taverns. I mean, that's just it brings it to life. And as a storyteller that you are, when you're live and you can tell that story, you're going to have people at the word hello. You're going to have them just listening and being like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I didn't know because it's so cool to hear it from the mouth of the songwriter.
Well, that you're just making me well up here, man. That is, I mean, I can't tell you how much I appreciate that because, yeah, and it's funny. I don't know where these come from. Some of these are autobiographical. I'm not
Sure.
that guy behind bars, but having been around the blues, some people can take the blues and say, well, how hard is that? It's 3 chords, it's 12 bars, 1, 4, 5, and some people don't maybe understand the depth of it. And I was writing a little bit about that guy, and he was saying that about himself. I thought I was going to be a rock star, and here I am. All I do is play the 1, 4, 5, and I do it every night for tips. And so that's kind of the story. I dreamed up this guy who he never made it. He was a loser. And I've written a couple of my songs are about those kind of people. Not that I'm, I think all of us have. That's part of all of us. We have struggles. It doesn't go right.
Yeah.
I had times where it didn't go right. And, I didn't become that guy. I became a different guy who had his own troubles. So these are parts of me in some way that come out in these songs. So I'm glad you listened to them. Thanks.
Oh, of course. I really enjoyed it. And it's neat that it's parts of you. It's not, some songs are more autobiographical than others, I'm sure. And some songs are parts of you. That's a part, we have many, many facets to our personality. We have many personalities. When we're with different people, we interact different ways. When we're more comfortable in certain types of rooms than others. And so it's really parts of your personality will come out in these songs.
It's funny. I have a good friend of mine who's a psychologist. He goes, Chris, you've got this Christopher Wyze persona, and then you have this. My real name's Chris Worthwine. He goes, and there's this Chris Worthwine guy. He said, that's your alter ego. That's not the real you. The real you is this Christopher Wyze guy who was a business guy for a lot of years and maybe worked a little too hard and took it too seriously and burned himself out. And I never did anything terribly stupid, but I can say that I didn't pay attention, and a lot of my life went by without paying attention. And now it's like a gift to have come out the other end and have some time to pay attention and use what I learned along the way. Ralph said, hey, I don't know if it would have been good if you'd have tried this when you were 20. What would I have known at 20? I don't know. I listened to the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and Jackson Brown back there, Doctor My Eyes. I think he was in 20 when he wrote 20s, maybe early 20s when he wrote that song. I wasn't smart enough to pay attention to the world like he was. I can see it now, and I have some of that wellspring, if you will, to pull from. And it's a lot of, good times, bad times, and everything in between that turns into songs.
That's what kind of is helpful in the sense that you've experienced many things in life. Like you said, ups and downs, we all have them, and I think that anybody who really forces that perfect world image that they're just fantastic, some of those are the people that are trying so hard to keep that image on because they don't know how to let people know how they're really feeling. You know what I mean? So I think we all have them. We all have ups and downs. But you have experienced life and now you can write about it. Whereas if you were 20 years old and writing, you're just beginning to experience things. And that's why I think a lot of younger musicians have a hard time continuing because the record label likes one song. They say, well, write about this. I say, well, I don't know. I've never been a cook at a gasoline station back room. I've never had this relationship. I I've not experienced these things. And so you've experienced life, and now you get to write about when you want to write about yourself, when you want to write about that person out there, when you write about a combination of both people.
Yeah, and the other thing is, uh, this isn't life or death for me. You know, I did this first record with Ralph because we wanted to do a record. It was
Right.
no more. It was no more complicated than that. And when we got done with it, we were both like, I kind of like it. And he was, I kind of like it too. And it's like high five. And then it was like, oh, holy cow, what are we going to do with this thing? I had no plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to get a record. I hadn't thought through any of that, but I just kept following sort of the breadcrumbs, man. And that happened. So, yeah, I don't know. And so I have the luxury, if I'm a young guy and I'm not eating good. And when I had a business and I was a young guy and I wasn't eating good, well, I just worked harder.
Right.
And so I couldn't have made it as a musician. I think I'd have burnt myself out because I darn near burnt myself out being an advertising guy, wanting to be the best, ad writer and advertising guy and all this stuff. And, it got me to here. But I think the other thing is, people who write songs, they really ought to pay attention to people like Shakespeare. I mean, there's great stories there, and I read a lot of that stuff too. And there's love and there's tragedy and so forth. So these are eternal stories that I think songs that are good kind of speak to those eternal stories.
Do you find yourself having, now that you've had the Memphis experience with the wanting to, I don't know if I should pull off the road or not and finish this song, did you find yourself, I don't know, carrying an extra couple scraps of paper or always having the voice memo thing on your phone or, to just record some word? Yep, see, there it is. Yep, we always have it, right? I bought a voice recorder a while ago. It was a little voice recorder, before we were really using the voice memos on here. But I was always walking around and singing and talking, and it's just fun.
It is. I texted Ralph 2 days ago, Ralph Carter. I said, Ralph, I think we need to do another record. And I didn't know what he was going to say. And I don't want to spoil anything, but he's like, sounds like fun. He did it again. He said, sounds like fun. So now we're going to go climb a mountain again. But I said, you know what? I got 100 songs on that phone over there. None of them are done. But that's okay. Because for 35 years, I was a write on command guy. I mean, right. I'm like a dog, Pavlov's dog. Chris, write this. I worked for a daily newspaper. It wasn't like, well, maybe turn it in at the end of the week. The damn paper's going to press in a couple hours.
Yeah.
There shall be
Talk
a
about
story.
pressure.
There's a story. The client needs the ad copy tomorrow. There is ad copy. You don't miss. And so when Ralph said, hey, and we agreed to meet in 3 months, that's all I needed was a deadline. And I had some story ideas in my head and away we went. So now I can't wait to go back to that pile of 100 ideas and fish out the ones that I think I can make into stories that hopefully people will like.
I think that's a real exciting process. I wish I was at that point in my musical journey where I was doing that, because I read that, like U2, for example, that U2 had 100 songs for their last album and they had to whittle it down to 10, and think about that. Thinking, wow, they wrote 100 songs, and we're talking bits and pieces too. I'm sure they had bits and pieces, but think about that. How cool it would be to say these are 10 finalists and really take it down. Okay, we got 50 left. All right, we're down to 20. We just need 10 songs. I think it would be so fun to have that music on your phone and to have Ralph saying, oh yeah, I really like this one. This one is a keeper. It has to be there in the top 10. I don't care if you got 99 more. That's top 10 right there.
And you know what? I think I'm going to write them to completion, and they won't be done because Ralph he's a great songwriter. He has great suggestions for lyrics, but I feel like the part I can do to help the process is to try to finish it to the best of my ability as a set of lyrics. And so the funny thing is, I keep learning so much about this. I knew nothing, man, when I started this little journey a few years ago. So I show up in Clarksdale, 4 years ago with like 15 song lyrics. And, we recorded 13 of them. So it's like, I didn't have 100. I didn't know that would have been a good idea. I'm like, well, what do you mean? When I would write my book, I didn't write the book 15 times and say, well, let's take this draft. It was like, no, there's the book. So I didn't know that. And then we did a live album. I didn't realize, I said, well, I'm going to go do this live album because I hadn't written any new songs, but our first album did so well. It's like, what are we going to do next? It's like, why don't we perform these songs? We were a studio band. We had never played a show. Zero, none.
Right.
And I said, Ralph, we're going to do a live album and would you do it in Clarksdale with me? He was down there for one of his guitar camps where he teaches people guitar and songwriting and whatnot. He said, yeah, I'll hang around another few days and I'll do it. And I said, I need some players. We had different players. A couple of them I'd never met. We met the day before. We walked through the songs. I said, Ralph, I don't even know how you do a rehearsal. He goes, don't worry about it. I'll run it. And he did. He's like, I don't, and it was like an hour and a half. And he's like, boys, we're coming back tomorrow. I don't want you to get burnt out. We're going to come in here and do this show. And we did it. We did 10 songs. I was going to do 8. And then in the car on the way down, I had Jerry Murphy, my bass player, who wrote 2 songs with me on our first album and this album as well. One of them number 1 on the RMR Roots Music Report, Back to Clarksdale on their blues chart. But I said, hey, Murph, we got all these guys together. Instead of doing 8 songs, how about we do 10? And I had 2 covers in mind, very old songs from the 1920s by Leroy Carr and Scrapper Blackwell, who, if you know Mike Bloomfield and Bob Dylan, those guys are crazy about Scrapper Blackwell.
Right.
Oh my, he's the deal, man. Well, the reason I picked him, and I don't know how I got there, but I found out they're from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Oh, really?
They lived pretty much their whole lives here. Scrapper moved here before I think he was a year old. Leroy moved here when he was a couple of years old. So they both lived their entire lives here pretty much in Indianapolis. And one of the songs is How Long Blues, which is said to be one of the first million-selling records in America ever in the 1920s. Written by Leroy and played with him and Scrapper on a recording that was done in a hotel room here in Indianapolis. It was done on portable equipment by Vocalion Records, and and they recorded 7 other versions of it later in their career, or maybe it was 6 other, because it was such a big hit. They just kept doing the same thing. So I did that song, and I did another song that Scrapper recorded in the 50s called Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out. But those are both blues standards, blues classics. They're in the public domain. They've been around so long. So I just said, let's do a couple of public domain songs. So we did 10 songs. Only then did it dawn on me is like, I'm listening to some of those albums back on your wall, and, you got Emerson, Lake and Palmer live, and you're like, well, why didn't they play those 5 songs that?
Right.
Well, they probably did, but they weren't happy with them. So knucklehead Christopher Wyze here shows up to do 10 songs and thinks they're all going to be keepers. That's no pressure, huh? But we did it. We did the show, and we played. It was a short show. We did 10 songs right there at the Juke Joint Chapel at the Shack Up Inn. And I said, boys, they're all going to be keepers. And you know what? I sure wish I had another crack at them. You always think you can do better, but we got 10 keepers out of it. So next time I'll do 20, and then we'll have 10 keepers.
Do 20 to do 10, right? Yeah. No, but it's everything points in your direction for success here, because think about that. You defied the odds on that. You defied the odds on the fact that you had 10 songs to record, do them in a take for the live show, have a live audience. You got them, and there you go. They worked, all 10. You didn't have to knock out 2 and go back to the studio and write 3 more, or you had 2 more songs. You said you have about 15 tracks or 13, and it worked. Getting struck by lightning sometimes is easier than some of the things that are going right for you, which is so neat.
Well, and I think Ralph Carter, after we got done recording in Muscle Shoals, I'd recorded a couple of CDs of our covers with our band. Fine. Yeah. You go in a studio, we do them live, we do it 3 times, take the best cut. Well, I went to Muscle Shoals with my pile of songs. Ralph had written charts for the musicians who he auditioned, and I met him on Monday morning. And at the end of the week, we had a record done, but none of us had ever heard these songs before. All they were was iPhone demos. I didn't know what they sounded like. I'm used to doing a CD or a record where you've played that on stage for 5 years and you know that song really well. Now let's go in the studio. These things didn't exist. I didn't know what they would sound like. And Ralph's saying, wait a minute, I'm hearing the Wurlitzer piano here, and I also want a little B3 in the background, and then Brad, I want you to just hit some key fills on the big piano here. And I mean, I didn't know what a producer did. I think Ralph was wise enough, who's a very wise man, to say, you know what? I'm not even going to tell Chris what he's getting into here. And I go down like, I'm just going to show up and make a record. And you know what? We did. And I'm glad I didn't know what I was getting into. And it really wasn't pressure. It was just a week of fun and joy and staying up all night. I did say I wrote all those songs in Clarksdale. Not true. We had one song, and I remember it was one of the last days we were there. Ralph came down from breakfast, and I was sitting there. And you live in this studio, Ivy
Oh
Man
yeah.
Shoals, and Ralph comes down, and he looks like he's seen a ghost. I'm like, Ralph, you doing okay? You sleep okay? He goes, can I talk to you? I'm like, what's up, man? He goes, well, that song, the last one we tried yesterday, it's not working. We can't do that song. I'm like, okay, that's okay, Ralph. No worries. He goes, I really don't even want to bring this up, but I have a song here I wrote, and if you want to do it, it's yours to do on this album. And he plays me a little demo of it. And I'm like, it's funny. I forgot, Ralph. I had written one song in my life 20 years ago. I'd forgotten about it. I didn't even know it was on my computer. And I said, that sounds like a song I wrote called Money Spent Blues. I'm an advertising guy. So I wrote this song called Money Spent Blues. The first line is, hey, Mr. Advertising Man, I bought your cigarettes. And, and I'm like, that sounds kind of like that. He goes, well, let me see the lyrics. And he's like, oh, this is a great song. Let's go do it. So we didn't even have a demo. He just went into this. We went into the studio right after breakfast and made that sucker into a song. And if you look at our Spotify plays and stuff, it might be number 2 or 3 of all the songs that we have as far as plays around the world. And it was just something I had forgotten about. And we made it up on the spot. I mean, Ralph did. I mean, he's the guy, man.
I think people can relate to it, listening to the lyrics and stuff. People can relate. We all have the money spent blues, and depending on what time of the month it's going to be that we're spending our paychecks, or if it's rent's due or the mortgage payment or the car payment, or going out and having a good time and realizing you had too good of a time because you had too many Pepsis, whatever the case might be, So it's we all have. So it's very relatable, which is probably why it does so well. It's a very relatable song. I was going to say something else too about producers. The more I talk to people and get to, it's a privilege for me always this is surely a hobby for me to get to talk to people. I love this. I really enjoy this. And I have learned that the producer is many, 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 many times the unsung hero. And I read books about producers. I have a book about record producers. It's about this thick, and it goes and lists all these producers and everybody and when people tell me who they had produced their record, I'm like, holy cow. And then when you say, well, how did you meet them? How did this happen? That producer is sometimes the golden key to make everything that you want to do work.
There's no question. I had no clue, man. I had no clue. I really didn't know what we were going to do there. And I was so clueless, I didn't even think about it. I wasn't like worried about it. And I can remember Ralph, at various times. I remember we have a song called Looking for My Baby. And he goes, Chris, we had laid down the sort of the rhythm tracks. I might have sung the vocal, and I think we were pretty happy with it. And he goes, you know what? If you're okay with this, I'd love to put a baritone sax in there. And it goes, bump, that old baritone sax. And I'm going, hey, that's cool, Ralph. And we're in Muscle Shoals. I say, hey, Michael, he runs the studio. Ralph wants to get a baritone sax. Oh, I know just the guy. Yeah, okay, be here at 10? Sure. Boom, there you go. Ralph dreams up an idea. We want to have a baritone sax. There you go. I remember taking a lunch break, and Ralph's in the sort of the recording room, and he's got a guitar, and he's scraping the pick down the strings, and it's going zzz, zzz. And I go in there and I go, what are you doing? He goes, listen to this. I listen. He goes, I love that sound. He goes, we're going to put that on Cotton Ain't King, or I don't even know what song it was. It's like, if you listen real carefully, it's in the background there. Oh, it was a different song. But another time, he took his car keys and he threw them from one hand to the other, and it goes chink, chink, chink. He goes, man, I love that sound. And we put that on Cotton Ain't King because I had this vision of, it's a song about where did the blues come from? And the moral of the story is, you know what? People say cotton ain't king. Cotton is king, but cotton ain't king. Blues is the king. Blues is the king.
Yeah.
That's what came up out of the soil that's been left with us. And I mean, it's a privilege to be able to play the blues. But I said, I want to hear this hoe going in the ground.
Yeah.
And I told him that. I actually went. I have a little 10-acre kind of screw around farm kind of thing that I work on. And when we were preparing to go to Muscle Shoals, I said, Ralph, I'm going to do some barnyard percussion. So I went in my barn and I just like rattled chains and I banged on the bucket loader of my tractor with a hammer. And I made a whole bunch of these percussion noises. I was hoping we would use them on some of the songs. We never did, but I was going for that sound for Cotton Ain't King, kind of farming sounds, but it can come from anywhere.
That's funny. It reminds me of it when Tom Petty did his first solo album. And it's a lot of times when those guys do their solo albums, they're still, Mike Campbell's maybe still playing guitars on a track or two. It's still kind of like a Heartbreakers album, but it's Tom Petty solo.
Yeah.
But he had Full Moon Fever, I think it was called, and he put it on a CD. And about halfway through the CD, about the sixth track, there was a little pause, and he says, and there's all these barnyard animals and all these noises. He says, this is the time when you would flip your record over, but if you're listening to a CD, you don't have to flip anything over, but you're hearing all these barnyard animals and all these sounds and clicks and everything. And it just reminded me when you said that of what he had done with that. It was so funny.
Well, you and I, I'm sure, listened to a lot of the Beatles. I sure did. And
yeah, oh my goodness.
They have crazy stuff and they're just crazy stories. And of course, we're kids listening to this thinking that, they've stayed up all night, scheming on that. No, right. they did something stupid and they thought it was funny, so they put it on the record.
Right. Yeah, there's so many things that were either accidents or just messing around, and it just becomes the next part of a big track. Never know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I really, that the whole producer concept, I was reading a book by Phil Ramone, and he was saying, I didn't really realize all that, he said part psychologist, part food runner, part, talking off ledges, part lyric writer, part, and I thought, I never thought a producer would be involved in the lyrics of change. I thought, is there some kind of a wall from the songwriter? He says, no, you could change that. You mind if I change this lyric? And someone like Stevie Nicks would say, no, that sounds better if you do this, if you do, and they would talk, they would negotiate lyrics.
No question. I had one lyric. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember I was struggling with it. Ralph said, he gets on the speaker, I'm in the isolation booth. Chris, he goes, what if you sang this? I mean, he's like tippy-toeing. I'm going, oh, that's a lot easier. Thanks, man. And so.
Isn't that funny? I mean, because I mean, the more I read about producers, it sounds like I'm sure there's, you get all kinds of people in the world, but the more I read about producers, they seem to really, for the most part, really treat their artists with kid glove to nurture that relationship. And instead of saying, oh, you can't do that, I need you to do this, take 5 on that and let's fix this. It's more of a, what do you think if we put the bridge in that other song? It just seems to fit the chord structure more. And, but they're like almost apologetic about it because they respect the art of music that you've brought to them. You've given them that gift of song, and they're trying to be treated with kid gloves. That's what I read a lot.
That's my experience. I mean, and Ralph knew that this was newish for me, and he, for whatever or however he did it, he took the right approach with me that I think I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. He got the very best out of everybody in that studio, including the engineer, including the intern. He had the intern scrape a washboard during one song.
That's awesome.
Like, wait a minute. At one point I said, I think I'd like to hear a kazoo on this. It was actually a song that didn't make its way onto the album. And Ralph gets the intern and sends him down the street to go get a bag of kazoos. And
that's awesome. That's awesome.
And Eric Deaton, we were sitting on the porch. Eric plays at the Black Keys. He plays as Eric Deaton as well. Just a sweetheart of a guy, great blues man, hill country blues kind of player. And we were doing a song called Good Friend Gone. And we had one version of it that we had done that afternoon. And we were sitting on the porch there, late at night. I was like having an adult beverage. And I said, man, Eric, this thing just doesn't sound right to me. And he's like, I like that song, but here's what I hear. He pulls out his guitar and I'm like, oh man, I love that. I'm like, he goes, well, it's just basic hill country drone, man. I'm like, I don't know the hill country blues. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I said, so I don't know how to sing that. He goes, well, like this. And he's got the lyric sheet. I'm like, oh, that's incredible. So he teaches me how to do this song. And then I said, okay, we get to the chorus. And I'm like, I can't make those words work. And he's like, yeah, you got too many words. I said, oh, wait a minute. what if I just had 3 words in the chorus? Good friend gone. And I just sing it over and over again. He goes, that's perfect. That's exactly Hill Country Blues. And so we did. I just sang those words over and over for the entire chorus. And we went in the next morning and cut the song. So really fun. Cool.
I mean, if sometimes you just wish that in life, everywhere you walked, there was a sign on the door that said, please check in your egos at the door. Because look at how much you can accomplish when everybody's kind of like just talking. He's saying, oh, I really like that song, but what if we,
Yeah.
and Ralph is saying, oh, how about if we try, and you're open to the ideas. And that's what I hear a lot about in music, especially in country music, bluegrass music, blues music. People just want to enjoy it. I'm sure in the rock and roll things, we're not going to make Bohemian Rhapsody be 4 minutes. We're not going to make it fit the radio 4 minutes, 3.5. It's going to be 7 minutes, So, there's just places in these genres of music where people are just like, hey, we're all on the same team. I talked to so many people who said that the people they inherited for their studio band, they didn't know these people by the end of the week, but like you described, by the end of the week, it just was like a family, and they had recorded exactly what was in their head.
They're so talented. I mean, I had Brad Kuhn on keyboards and Justin Holder on drums, and they play a lot of stuff at Fame Studios for everybody in Muscle Shoals. I mean, they're hired guns, but the thing is, you might think, oh, well, they've played for everybody. You could just name the names. They got to be hard to work with. No, they're sweethearts. They are there in service of the song. And I can't believe that, they're just professionals in every way. It was so great.
I would imagine it would take a lot of pressure off, if you don't have to. Even I've heard sometimes someone says, oh, just play this 8-bar lick. And they're like, if I don't have to, it's been great. Yeah. It's great producing, It's
what? Yeah, it's exactly. He would take each of the players at different times. I can just look over there. I can picture myself being in the studio, and there's Ralph with Eric. Ralph has grabbed a guitar and he's saying, I'm hearing more like this. Ralph plays it. And I'm like, why doesn't he just go record that? And he's teaching Eric how to do it. He's going out with Justin Holder in the drums and saying, I'm hearing a little different tuning on this drum. We go in the back of the studio and he's got 100 drums there. Ralph's banging on each one of them going, I like this one. And they swap it out. And I didn't know that was going to happen. That's just crazy.
You never do know. Tell us a little bit about the Tellers, the band that's together now. You got these 2 albums behind you here, and you're doing some gigs. These guys that you brought together, how did this all come about? The band itself.
Well, again, we were formed as a studio project, never played, and then the first album, the studio album, Stuck in the Mud, which is up for an award, by the way, which I want to tell you about in a minute.
Yeah, please, yes.
So that it did really well. I had no idea. I didn't know what I didn't know what would happen. And then it became, well, this is going so well. We got to do something. And I'm like, well, Ralph and I haven't written any new songs. Let's do the live album. So we did. That came out 9 months, almost to the day, from the first album. I mean, we whipped it out really quickly. And so that was a different band because we weren't in Muscle Shoals. We went to Clarksdale. That's where I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it in the Juke Joint Chapel at the Shack Up Inn in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And it required some different people. So we had Doug Banks from Memphis join us. He had recorded on 3 of the songs. 3 of the songs on the first album actually were done in Clarksdale. After we signed the record deal, we decided to add some new songs, and we did those in Clarksdale because it was real convenient. It's right near Memphis and da-da-da-da-da. But so we had Doug Banks and then Mark Yakavone, who's on the keyboards. He lives in Oxford, Mississippi, an hour away, and we put him in there. And then we had John Boyle, who I'd played with in cover bands for years and years. He came down and did the guitar. And then Jerry Murphy's played on every song we've ever done. So he's my bass player. So that was the first time those Tellers were together.
Right.
And we practiced one time before and did the thing. So we just did a gig here in Indianapolis a couple of weeks ago. And it's another group of Tellers. So I have a new drummer and a new keyboard guy. And we'll see where this goes. We got some more gigs coming up, but it'll probably be that group. And it's guys I've known from playing music around here. And then, it's always well, I know this guy who plays keys. So we grabbed him, Gary Smith, and that's the Tellers now. And so, our goal, I think, is to play blues festivals, and we got to get after that. And then the big dream, and we'll see, you can hold me to this and see if we can get it done, is to play in Europe where the blues is really the king and people just love the blues there. You know, we get so much play in Europe of our streams and on radio programs. France is like big. Netherlands, Belgium, Germany.
Yeah.
We had a number one
Wow.
iTunes
I had
song
no
in
idea. I had
Germany.
no idea that the blues were
Yeah.
as popular out there. No idea.
Oh, it's crazy. And a lot of the blues artists here are able to be blues artists because they tour Europe once a year and they're treated well. And I think they're paid well. And it enables them to come back to the US where it's not really that way.
That's fantastic. And it probably comes from your advertising career too. You have a get it done kind of an attitude, and you're gonna make sure it happens. You're humble about it. You're humble about it, but from what I could, but you're gonna make it happen. And people like you. I could just tell. I feel like I've known you, and we're just talking here. We're just chatting. I could tell people like you enough that they're gonna want to make that happen for you because they know how much you want to do it, and they want to see it happen.
It is really funny. And somebody asked me, I talked to various people and, people interview me and stuff. And somebody said, well, what would you tell a young person? I said, be nice to people. That doesn't take any talent. And I probably wasn't nice when I was a young guy. I thought I knew everything. And look where I am today, just all that I've learned in the last couple of years. I'm just so lucky guy. So, I'm really grateful, and it's hard to have that attitude when you're 25, isn't it? You're a little bitter.
Yeah, you feel like you got something to prove. Sometimes we feel like we had something to prove, or there's a lot of egos around us that force us to, knock the testosterone up a little bit, and to just, and then we get older and we realize, it's not about that. It's about who you can help, how you can help them. Look at how one person has changed your life. How Ralph.
No
right?
question.
And many others. But think about it, if he didn't
many others.
Yeah. But that was where it's kind of began, and then all the people that he knew, the different musicians and musicians you knew.
Yeah.
Before you knew it, you had a village working on these records, and it makes a difference.
Well, and I'm sure I asked myself, what does anybody care? Do they listen to music? And maybe you ask yourself that, I don't know, but look at what you're doing for the people who come on your show. Look at what you're doing for me. And I genuinely mean that. I mean, we can't be anywhere without, people like you who take the time to listen and care. I mean, it's a big deal. I didn't get that. It's really a big deal, man. And I love it. I mean, I really appreciate you having me here and getting to talk to you. It's just so great.
Well, I thank you for your kind words. It's a pleasure to be able to do this, and I'm always so inspired by all the people I talk to. I want to see them succeed, and there's nothing more exciting than to see that next step for somebody. Like, oh my gosh, they're doing this show. They're doing sessions at 54th Street, or they're South by Southwest, or whatever they're doing. It's always neat to see that, and it's like a proud parent or something. I'm just someone on the journey with everybody. I'm just on that journey and seeing what everybody's accomplishing is so rewarding, so rewarding. So.
Yeah, I counted up all the people, this was like a year or so ago, and it was dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. And yet I'm the guy who gets to talk to you, but you're one of those people in this little crowd we've got now too, which is really cool.
Well, thank you so much. So I wanted to ask you this, I want to kind of comment on this, the Tellers, you got the different people. Think about like the Pretenders, think about Heart. Those are bands, two sisters, right? Yeah. One person, Chrissy Hind and the Pretenders. You got Ann and Nancy Wilson. Those members, they started out as a band, of course, but many, 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 many changes to the point where it's really those cores of people now. Well, you're Christopher Wyze, and you're working with so many great people that it's like, hey, this album is going to be good for these four guys, and this tour won't work with that one guy. He can't go because he's got his family in Florida, and that's going to be like a little, not a like a what's the word? A franchise, but not like in an egotistical kind of way. Just like, hey, these are all guys who you get the honor, and gals, possibly down the road. Who knows who you'll be working with, to play along with and to learn about different things. Everybody learns from everybody else in the music business. We learn things,
No question. It's like maybe I got a little bit of the recipe, but they're the cooks, man. They make the music. There's no food without the cook. Now, a recipe is just a recipe. It takes a heck of a lot of skill to make it into something that's worth eating, man.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I love any food analogies, by the way. Any food analogies are always good for me. So,
I
um,
hear you. I hear you.
so what happens from this point forward? You got the albums. I know you talk about you're in the. Oh, first of all, go back real fast. I want to respect your time today too, so I'm going to
Yeah.
kind of ask you a couple more things and wrap things up here. But you were talking about an award that you're up
Yeah.
for. I wanted to hear about that. I don't want to forget about that.
Yeah, Blues Blast magazine, which is a great publication here in the U.S. It's a digital magazine, comes out weekly, so they report on the blues weekly, and they do an awards event program every year. And I was nominated in their Blues Blast Music Awards for new artist debut album for Stuck in the Mud, and a whole panel kind of picks them out. And then fans vote. So, if you're so inclined and want to check out Blues Blast Music Awards, you'll see us there under new artist debut album and all sorts of great artists. I mean, people who've won these blues awards, Tab Benoit, Shamika Copeland, on and on it goes. I mean, it's cool stuff. So just to be nominated is really cool. So
Yeah, just to be alongside some of those names and
Yeah.
to say, wow, pinch myself moment kind of thing. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so great. That's so great.
yeah, I'm smiling.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So what happens now? You got this next album. You're kind of starting to work on. You said you have some more shows left this year. Are you venturing out east and west, or
we're probably in this central area here. I've got an arts festival. It's a really big one in Indianapolis, and we get to play on the blues stage there. And we'll probably have a couple more. But I'm going to set my sights on setting up a better calendar for next year. We've got the kinks worked out. I think we've got music that we can play. We've been in front of people, and they seem to be okay and kind of like it. So I got to get to work. I've been lazy. I haven't done much. So.
But it's okay, because you know what? This is like you said, it's not like it would have been, and it's not like the advertising business was, where it has to happen. You're doing this for the love of music, and when good things happen on the way, then that's a bonus, right? But you're not saying it has to happen. Oh my gosh, we have to have 35 cities. We can't just have 4. We can't just have 10. We've got to have 60 cities, and we've got to have 5 sponsors. No, you're saying, hey, let's do some shows. Let's see if people enjoy it. Let's see what they think. And that's the best place to be, catbird seat.
It is, and I think maybe that's what Ralph meant about, I'm not so sure you would have wanted to do this when you were 25, because it would have looked totally differently. I said, I'm going to make a record. You can't just make a record, you got to write a check to people who do this. And, just to be able to be in a position where I don't have a motorcycle or a boat or a lake house or any of that stuff, but I do have this hobby. And I was able to follow it in that regard. So you can't do it if you're young. It is this, hey, they want me to do this song and I don't have any choice. But that's not where me and really the guys in my band, Ralph's not at that stage in his life either. We get to do what we think is going to be enjoyable. So I'm really grateful for that.
And I think there's a lot of potential and hope for the future, because all of us, as we age, we all grew up in a time of music that was golden and magical. And unfortunately, unless you search really hard, you can search on the internet and find lots and lots of great music. Lots of great young singers and songwriters. But if you look to radio like we used to when we were younger, it's harder to find something that we can relate to. And I think there's a lot of people in our age demo that are looking to hear music from that they can relate to, and who will better to hear it from than people that they grew up at the same time with. So I think there's a whole world for us. And maybe I'm being optimistic for myself too, but that there's a whole world of people out there that don't necessarily want to hear a brand new 20-year-old singing, because it's hard to relate. Not that they're bad. The songs, I mean, there's some great melodies out there, some great voices. I respect them all. I teach music lessons. I respect the voices, and I love when they bring their own songs even, or their own. But I just say, I think there's at some point, there's got to be some kind of a idol competition on TV for people that are, 40 and over, 50 and over, 60 and over, songwriting competitions,
Hey, maybe that's what you need to do, my friend.
I gotta sit down and think about that. My think tank is just, always.
You're an idea guy. I love that, man. And you got to do stuff with your music. So you write music. What do you play?
I went to school to be a band director, and I play clarinet. But
wonderful.
If I could do it all over again, it'd be piano. I mean, I do play.
Yeah.
I taught myself. I taught myself to I basically arpeggiate the chords in my left hand, and I play my running bass line in the left hand. I was not a person who could sit there and really see the 3 notes in the left hand and play them all. So I see my guitar chords, I play them that way, and it works. I accompany people for their lessons and pop songs, rock songs, whatever it might be, and I get by. But I really wish I would have gone to school to really learn that piano. It's a work. It's a tool bench. It's a work board.
You'd be a great blues piano guy. It's a simple thing to start, and then you can just, build and build from there. I've done the 1-4-5 chord on the
Yeah,
piano. It's not great, but that's what I found about the harmonica. I was like, after a couple of weeks, it's like, this isn't great, but it's not bad. And I'm
right.
playing with the guys, and they're like, take that up on stage. I said, I just started playing it. They're, no, that sounds okay. Like, and I kind of get the pattern of the music. I'm not going to pick up the wrong harp or play the 4 chord when it should be the 1 chord. So you can get started really quickly with the blues.
Yeah, yeah. That's inspiring. It's true. It's true because you got a few chords you start with, and you can always expand to the seventh and ninth chords and all that stuff. And that's interesting.
You lost me there.
Oh, sorry. I kind of lost myself there. I'm always thinking about those extra notes, and I just stick with the ones I know. That's about it.
That's great. That's great.
So, where should people that want to hear more about your music? What's the best form of social media? I know you refer to a YouTube man and a YouTube video in a song. I love that and different things. And I'm seeing your videos out there, and where should people kind of go to learn more and to hear more?
Yeah, we have a website, ChristopherWyze.com, Christopher WYZE.com, and that's kind of a hub. You can go anywhere. You can get our music. If we have things like our CD, which comes with a DVD of the show, and
Yeah, 50-minute DVD, I think. 50
yeah,
minutes.
I did a documentary film in Clarksdale, and so that's there. But from there, you can get to our Facebook. We do a lot of stuff on Facebook. We've got a couple of thousand followers now. It's kind of come up out of nowhere, which is really fun. I mean, we're not zillion followers yet, but you know what? It's fun just when anybody looks at our Facebook page or our website. But ChristopherWyze.com, great place to go. We're on Spotify. We're on platforms all over the world, and that's a great thing about having a record label. They're the guys who get that out there. I didn't know how to do that. I somehow lucked into getting a record label deal, and now I've got those folks helping me too. So it's just fantastic.
It wasn't luck. I don't believe that. I think it was because the people that you interacted with genuinely wanted to help you, because I could tell that they genuinely wanted to help you. That's all there is to it. And they did, you did the music and you left the rest of them in a polite way, said, "Can you help me?" I wouldn't know either. I wouldn't know either. At one point, I think CD Baby or some company was saying, "We'll get you on all these different platforms." And I was like, I would need that because I wouldn't know where to begin. How do I convince somebody that my song belongs on iTunes? But really, anybody who has a recording, you can get that there if you have the right people showing you how to do it. So,
right. I joined the Nashville Songwriters Association when I got started, with Ralph on this stuff, and they have a mentor program, which was unbelievable. So they tell you, hey, here's 4 or 5 people. They don't tell you their name. They say what their background is, and they'll spend an hour on the phone with you. You can send them some of your songs. So I had finished my album, and I sent it to a guy named Jim Riley, who had been with the New Dillons. He's a Nashville producer. And he listened to my stuff and that Ralph and I did there in Muscle Shoals, and he said, "This is really good. I would buy this." And so we talk.
wow.
You're kidding me. And so I'm asking for input, and at the end he goes, "Well," he said something like, "Well, how can I help you?" I said, "Well, Jim, I want a record label." Like, "Oh, you don't want a record label? You can do this yourself. I mean, it's not that hard." I'm like, "No, I don't have many at bats left. I got to get going fast." So he made the connection for me. He said, "Tell you what, I know Johnny Phillips with Selecto Hits. He's in Memphis. If that name rings a bell, his uncle's Sam Phillips of Sun
Right.
Studios." So Sam and Johnny and his brothers started Selecto Hits in 1960 to distribute records. They were making records, but then they were distributing the vinyl. That company's still around. It's run by the 2 Phillips brothers, the nephew and the son of Sam Phillips. And Johnny Phillips signed me to Big Radio Records because of Jim Riley, who made the introduction. And I think Johnny said, "Hey, if Jim Riley says it's good, I need to take a listen." And that happened.
That's great. That's really something. That's quite a compliment then, and
Uh,
it's neat. Yeah, that's really something.
that's how it
But
happened.
I tell you, I'm looking forward to hearing more music. I'm right around the bend. I'm in Chicago, so if I can't get to Indianapolis to hear a local show, then I got problems. I mean, I can't get to Nashville overnight. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer, but I can get to Indianapolis for heaven's sake. I have vacation in Indianapolis, you
There you
know.
go. We got a
So I
September 6th show. Come on down. It's a great arts festival at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. They've got a beautiful campus. It's outdoors. There's food. There's beverage. There's lots of bands. It's a heck of a lot of fun. It's on the website, so anybody can find it there.
You sound like you might have been in advertising at some point. I'm
Ooh,
trying
yeah, you're right.
to. No, I mean it sounds very fun. It sounds like a lot of fun, and Indianapolis is 4 hours, so it's
There
an
you
easy
go.
drive. Chris, it's just been a pleasure talking to you. I'm looking forward to digging in even deeper than I have into the music and listening to it. I love it. I'm looking forward to hearing that there's a possible another studio album being worked on for 100 songs down to those golden 10 or 11 songs. That's really exciting, and I sincerely wish you all the best. I hope we can talk again when that next album comes out, and we can really,
I would
you
love it.
know.
It'd be
So
great. Kevin, you do such a great job. I can tell you love this, which just really makes it fun. So you do a great job. It's really cool.
thank you so much. You don't know how much that means. I really appreciate that. And Mutual Admiration Society, I really
I know.
admire what you do and how you were able to find it's a good story, a happy ending story. Someone who had a long career, that I'm sure good days and bad days, but a grueling career at some points in life, with pressure, and now you're getting to just enjoy this, do it because you want to. And there's so many people who would just love to be able to emulate what you're doing. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. Been a pleasure to be with you, man.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. All right.
All right. You bet.
Thank you.